Welcome to the first class of the rigging course. It's more than just rigging, it's also animation. So I'm just going to kind of go through here. Here's a character animation reel that it's mine. You can read about me here. It's not all that interesting. Basically, I teach animation, a little bit of web design, computer graphics in general, like Photoshop, that sort of stuff. I also know hand-drawn and stop-motion animation and all sorts of stuff. If you need to contact me, you can contact me here. Here's my rigging demo reel. This point is moot. If you want to download the syllabus or rubric, or it'll be syllabus, you can download it here. Just click on it and you can download it. Basically, what this course is going to be rigging three-dimensional, computer-generated three-dimensional models and animating them. So it's like a two-part thing. Yeah, basically what it comes down to. It's very object-oriented. Just so you know, we will be using Blackboard throughout the course, so that's what I use in order to email you. It's also how I'm going to grade you. So you can click on here or here, depending on what school you're at, and that will automatically pop open to Blackboard, but make sure that you're checking it regularly. Also, I will email you through it, so if you don't check your school-issued email, you will not know. All right, so as far as the grades are concerned, I'm going to give you an assignment every week, but really those assignments are meant to be part of projects. They're really just steps in the grand scheme of things. So, for instance, there's these two assignments right here. First assignment's to rig objects, and the second one's to animate the objects. But the final thing is going to be a motion graphic animation. Okay, so this will be graded at the end of this week. This will be graded at the end of this week, so on and so forth, all the way down. So it's 140 points total because there's 14 weeks. Okay, so 10 points every week for that. And then also what I do is I just grade what the project looks like at the end. In a sense, these are almost completion grades. I'm not going to really be too nitpicky. It's more just based on, like, did you complete the assignment and to what extent did you? Here's where I get a little bit more about, like, aesthetics and craftsmanship and creativity and what have you. Just to give you, I'm going to kind of skip this section. Basically, there's going to be these four things. So the first thing we're going to do is create a motion graphic animation. You're going to take, we'll go in that one in a second. So I'm going to skip that because I'll describe it later on. But you're going to create a motion graphic animation. The second one is to create realistic human animation. So what you're going to do is you're going to either take a human model, a realistic human model that you've already created, or I will give you You'll produce one in some way. I'll have like a program that you can use sliders and things in order to create a realistic human. You will rig it, the human that you have, using human IK, and then you're going to animate a couple of things. You'll animate a walk and run cycle and an action cycle. Okay, so the walk and run cycle is just going to be a walk and a run. The action cycle will be like a fight sequence or something like that, where it's like a repeatable action in a sense. Like a punch, punch, kick, or, whatever. The character rig is basically going to be that you're going to take a character that you've modeled. More than likely, I'm thinking like a cartoon kind of character. And there's multiple steps in that. And I'm just going to grade it basically on its, on how well it's done. And the last one's going to be a lip sync animation, which you're going to use your character rig to complete. Okay, so basically what you'll do is you'll find a 10-second clip, an audio clip that's either a monologue, dialogue, soliloquy, what have you, and you'll make like a little skit out of it. Okay, and you will animate it using the rig that you created. Okay, so that's basically how it works. And then there's also 10 points for participation, which makes it round out at 350 points total. All right. So, rigging. Basically, rigging is what you do in order to take a three-dimensional mesh piece of geometry and you make it animatable. Okay. Often what that means is taking the piece of geometry, the character, and applying different deformers to it that let you deform the object at a component level, meaning like moving the vertices, edges, and other things, not moving it as a whole object, but actually bending it and twisting it and that kind of thing, articulating it in different ways in order to manipulate it to make it appear that it is moving. Okay, so that's basically what rigging involves. Okay. So some things that you should think about, like if you wanted to really get into rigging, that was really a big thing for you. Sometimes you call it like a character rigger or a character TD, technical director. Things that you have to understand, for one, is you need to know pretty much everything about a character. You have to understand it, and you have to know how to use Maya really well. Unlike other aspects of 3D, there's definitely like what is right and what is wrong. So meaning they'd be like, oh, well, I like the way that this character runs, you could say, with an animation, or I like how big the eyes are on this character. With a rig, it's not like that. I mean, you can have something like, oh, I think it'd be really cool if the character was able to do such and such, but it either works or it doesn't work. And if it doesn't work, it's just broken. There's really nothing more to it than that. It has to be able to do certain things, and you're supposed to, deliver on that. So you want to make it a well-run engine. You know what I mean? So the other thing that ends up happening too, which is one of the things that always befuddles me at times, is basically if there is a problem with a character, with a rig, you are the one that they come to, because basically you are the one that built it. You built the piece of machinery that everyone's trying to animate, and if there is some sort of issue with it, which honestly, very often, most often, there is. I mean, pretty much every time. Just because it's not always your fault, it's just sometimes things don't work a certain way, or things happen, but you will be expected to solve those. And so, to a large extent, riggers are the ones that really understand how everything works. Okay. So here's a good example of basically how it works. So the modeler is the person that builds the car. The texturer is the one that paints the car. The rigger is the one that puts the engine wiring and the functional aspects of the car. It allows someone to drive the vehicle. The animator drives the car, and then the lighter renderer is the one that takes the pictures and lights it. Okay. So while we're working through this whole rigging system, one of the things that you really have to understand is this, is that Maya is actually a node-based system, meaning that basically everything that you see is created through a bunch of different objects that all have different properties and attributes on them that allow you to do different things. So it's actually very much like coding. So if you use the object-oriented programming, it's the same basic idea where there's a bunch of objects. Each one of those objects have different things in them, different values and things that can be applied to those. And when you combine those together, you can make other things. So for instance, if you were to have a cube here, this cube, if you were looked at in 3D, it's not merely just a cube. It's actually a collection of a bunch of nodes. And it's actually more than these, but these are the main ones that you would typically see. First off, when the cube was made, it had polycube 1. This was the creation node. This set up the initial parameters and actually placed all of the components that are there. The shape node is actually every vertice that is on this. Okay, so there's actually 8. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so that's why you see 0 through 7, because but that's every vertice. So that's the shape node. That's the actual position of all the different vertices in order to make the node. Then here you see a shading group node, which is actually what's being applied to this, which allows you to see it. Okay, but there's other nodes too. There's the transform node, which allows you to scale, rotate, and move it, and other ones as well. Okay. Basically, nodes can be broken down into 2 major groups, which really don't make that much difference to you. There's directed acyclic graph nodes, which pretty much means that you have, it's this here. It's a parent-child system. So something's parented to something, something's parented to something else, so on and so forth. So when you go in the hypergraph hierarchy, you will see that everything in there is displayed as DAG nodes. Okay, it's very structural. Now, dependency graph nodes are a little bit different, where you can actually have things that bleed into each other. They go off into different directions. They're not a parent-child system. In fact, you can even have cycling, which can be an issue, and that does happen occasionally. Okay, so, but this is where things get a little bit fancier. But really, both these things happen, at the same concurrently. Okay, so some things to think about is transforms. The main way that you're going to animate or do anything is transforms. That's the most basic thing. And basically, what you're doing is you're controlling something at the object level. So you're controlling the transform node by moving. You can rotate and you can scale. Right? Not too sexy. Now, deformers, they work at the component level. They allow you to warp, twist, wrangle the geometry at the component level in order to deform it in a variety of ways. So here you can see we have nothing, bend, flare, sine, squash, and twist. These are the basic nonlinear deformers. Down here you can see some other ones. So we have a clusters. I don't know if you can see the C there. We have a lattice where you can bend and warp. It puts a lower poly shell over top of it. That's a lattice. Here we have a wire deformer. You draw a CV or EP or just any kind of NURBS curves. And then when you deform it, it deforms the geometry above it. Here we have a sculpt deformer. And then we have a jiggle deformer. And there's many more than this as well. So, for your assignment, what I want you to do is basically rig a bunch of objects for whatever you want to do to create your logo animation. So what you can see here is that I have these different video tutorials. This is just creating the models. Really, there's nothing fancy here. You should probably already know how to do this. You can skip this one. This one creates a squash rig, so it looks like a ball bounce, basically, a ball rig. This one just merely bends it. This one is just a culmination of all of them. You can twist, you can flare, sine, so you can see there's like a curve thing through it. But really, it can be applied to any of those. I just kind of threw them all on one thing. So, because these are both kind of nonlinear deformers, but they're only one apply to each. I just applied them all to this one. So if you know you need something, you can apply, a bunch of them together or what have you. This is a wire rig, so I drew a curve through it, and then I made controllers to control that curve. That works pretty well. This is a lattice rig, which is basically like this, where you make a shell, and then kind of like the wire rig, I make controllers onto the shell in order to manipulate that. Okay. Now, the assignment that you're going to have to do is basically going to be assignment 01. Like I said, there's going to be two of them, and it's a two-part project. But basically, the first one is to create the models that you need. So I'm assuming you're going to honestly just do text, and then rig it. So you're going to create the models, you're going to apply the materials and or textures, and then rig them so that they will be animatable for next class. Because what you want to do, or what I want you to do, is create a sort of logo animation. So something that you would put in front of, like a slate, if you will, that you would put in front of like a film that you made or a game that you made. Like Pixar has a little bouncing Luxo lamp, that sort of thing, where you would add something in there. The Pixar one was a little more complicated because that's actually character animation. Thinking something a little bit more simple, but I just want you to animate objects going around in a real basic sense, so you get a sort of feeling of, adding different animation principles or canon in order to make something that looks nice. Okay, but what I want you to do for this assignment is merely to create the assets and rig them. Okay, and that's what it comes down to. So you can use these as guide, but do not feel like you have to be limited to this. If you want to try something else, go for it. Honestly, I would try to maybe mix match these and do whatever. I just try to make the most well-rounded variety that I could think of. Okay, and if you have any questions, feel free to email me. Yeah, good luck.